Did you know Super Awesome Mix has an app? Go to the Apple App Store today and download Super Awesome Mix. It's free. You could start creating and sending your own digital mixtapes in just a few clicks. Also, there's links to our Instagram account and a link where you can follow your favorite podcast. Speaking of which, welcome back to another Super Awesome Mix. My name is Matt Sidholm, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Super Awesome Mix, Samer Abu Salbi. Samer, how we doing this week?
Doing real well. I can't believe that we've got just a handful of episodes really to record to finish out season 3, because we got our best of coming up, and then that's kind of a wrap on the year. It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild to think we're 3 seasons into this show. Yeah, it's I don't know. Time just flies by. It feels like we're still new at this. And maybe the listeners would agree, but I hope they wouldn't if they're still listening. So,
yeah, you guys are terrible. I don't know why I keep tuning in for 3 years. Just keep hoping. Keep hoping you get better, but it's just not doing it.
Well, but hopefully we're so good that someone decides to copy what we're doing at some point, because that really is the sincerest form of flattery and is a good segue into this week's theme. We're going to do another covers mix.
Yeah, volume 3 of our covers. So this is a mega mix. So there will be 24 songs that we're going to be covering, but we will be doing them 2 at a time. So we'll have the original, who sang the original, and then who, the cover that we picked, and then kind of, just loosely talk about who we think did it better, as we've done before. So it's always a lot of fun to do this, and there's no shortage of covers in the world. That's what I always discover.
Yeah, it's amazing how many songs out there have just been done and redone. And even when I was putting this together, I actually put 2 covers on there and had to catch myself that I was like, wait, no, this is the original one. Had to sift through multiple covers there, but we'll get to that track later.
Totally. Yep. I'm always worried about that too. I get that wrong. All right, but let's get into it. So the first pair of tracks is Into the Mystic, originally done by Van Morrison, and you picked the cover by the Wallflowers.
Yeah, the Wallflowers of One Headlight fame. I actually saw them live in Dallas just a couple of weeks ago, and it was awesome. They sound great.
Nice.
Jakob Dylan sounds really good, and they actually did this song live, and I think they do. And I was like, wow, I wonder if this is a recorded version. Well, it turns out for the American Wedding soundtrack, so that was like the 4th in the American Pie series, or maybe 3rd. This was on there, and
wow.
Yeah, recorded it for the soundtrack, and I think they do a really good job. Jakob Dylan's voice, first of all, is still intact, right? Like, he still sounds great, unlike his father, who doesn't sound as good now. But yeah, they do a really nice job here. So not only with his voice, but then, instead of the, I think there's horns in the original, you get, a little bit more like mandolin and guitar here, working through the track. So just a little bit different take. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, you're definitely going to recognize it when you hear it. But I think between Jakob Dylan's voice and the different instruments, they do a better job of kind of setting it off.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about like the different types of covers. Like, is this just kind of a filter, as we kind of joke about, or is this truly like a unique take? And I think this one is, very much in line with the 2. I will say that I think that both songs missed an opportunity to use like a real foghorn, because all that I could think, for some reason, that's what my mind fixated on listening to this song, is like, he has the foghorn, he, sings about the foghorn, and then there's like a kind of like an organish thing that they use to like replicate that. But it doesn't do it for me, and we just talked about on the Metallica mix about how Lars like banged an anvil. So I feel like these guys could have gone out and gotten themselves a foghorn on the track.
Yeah, when I've mentioned before, when I saw AC/DC in concert, when they do Hell's Bells, a giant bell like appears on stage, and they are like gonging this giant bell at the time. And so you all know what's coming at that point. So yeah, maybe if we ever got to see Van Morrison live, like there's a foghorn that blows, and then everyone kind of realizes, oh, he's doing it. This is it. He's going into
it's
the
happening. But yeah, I I like this song. I love both versions of it. It's hard for me to kind of pick one. I think they both do a really nice job. I like the softness of the Van Morrison version, but I think the Wallflowers one is like a very good cover of it. And you're right, like he's just got a great voice.
Yeah, it was great to hear live. I probably still favor the original, but yeah, you're right. Both do a really good job. Okay, your first pick. The song is "Brand New Colony," and the original is by the Postal Service, with the cover by the Beths and Pickle Darling.
Yes, Pickle Darling is a great name.
It's a great name.
This one's great because it's both new music because it just came out, the cover, and also it's Postal Service. So like double check for me here, because anytime, as you'll see, like if Ben Gibbard does anything at all, I'm gonna pick him. And so yeah, like it was the Beths was a band that I was introduced to in this last year. I really like their sound, and so I was really excited to see this like pop up in my new music for you. Like the algorithm kind of put it in my face because they knew that I would be drawn to this because the cover of Postal Service by a band that I just like discovered, definitely was gonna like it. I love the original so much. I always will. But I think this take on it is kind of like fun and playful and a little bit lighter. Whereas the original one definitely kind of has like a gloomy and morose feel to it because, it's like Ben Gibbard's work. So of course it does. But like, the best version with like the clapping and like kind of, I feel like that's a xylophone. Like some of the instruments being played there are just very playful, especially like Beth's part. Whereas like the, Pickle Darling's voice is almost like the National covered this song. So you get like kind of two really interesting takes on this song and, in one track. So also really love the outro in the Beth's version as well. So hard for me to pick the two because I think they're both great, but I think this one is an interesting take on a great song.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't familiar with this song previously, right? So I'm hearing both of them for the first time. And I think if you played these for me on like just completely separate mixes, I don't know if initially I would pick up that it's the same song. And so I
Right.
think it's like kind of a cool thing that the Beths and Pickle Darling did something so different with it, just vocally and like you said, different instruments that it really kind of took it in a different direction, which I thought was really cool. Um, I think I kind of like their version a little better, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not as in on the Postal Service as you are, but and maybe that's why, but just kind of neutral party observer. I feel like their version was a little better.
All right. You know what? We're going to end the season early. I'm out. We're calling it right here.
I just said I'm not as in on them as you are. Not that I'm out. Not that I'm out.
All right. I'm going to take 5 and then we'll pick back up with your next track. No, it's all good. All right. But let us move on to your next pick. So you went with The Chain by Fleetwood Mac and the cover by the Highwomen.
Yeah, so I recently listened to the entire Rumors album, just like beginning to end by Fleetwood Mac, and it's usually like one of the top 10 albums of all time. And I think I know every song on that album, but I'd never listened to just the album beginning to end. And it's incredible. And I think what's cool is that you realize Fleetwood Mac was a supergroup, but we didn't know it at the time, right? It was just these 4 musicians coming together. But now if those 4 came together, it would be like, that's a supergroup. So I thought it was appropriate that the cover here is by an actual supergroup. Okay. So the Highwomen are Brandi Carlile, Natalie Hemby, Maren Morris, and Amanda Shires. I think Brandi Carlile, probably the biggest name of those 4. Maren Morris, probably not far behind. But they do a pretty straightforward like recreation of this song, right? Like you're going to recognize it immediately. A couple differences are the 4 women kind of harmonize the entire time, which is really unique and sounds really cool. And then at the end of it, you just get this crazy guitar solo, which I can only assume is Brandi Carlile. Which is also a pretty cool topper for what is just a great song, right? Like, so the original is awesome, but I like where they took this in the cover.
Yeah, I think I would pick the cover on this one. I'm like pretty solidly in that camp. Great original song, no doubt. Like Fleetwood Mac, as you said, is definitely like a super group looking back. But I like this one. I like this take on it. I love that, that crescendo in the outro for sure. I just kind of love how it kind of, builds up that way. But yeah, I just think it has more, like, the cover has more richness to it. And granted, like 30 years had gone by or whatever the the difference is between the original and this recording, so I'm sure that plays into it. But I think the richness actually does come from that harmonizing more than just the fact that audio quality improved tremendously. So I like that one. Yeah, these were really nice to listen to. I enjoyed both, but I really liked the cover.
Nice. Well, I thought we had done a Fleetwood Mac back to back when I just looked at the titles here, but it's a different song altogether. So the song is Dreams, but the original is by the Cranberries, and the cover is by MisterWives.
Yeah, I love the original by Cranberries. I mean, it's just like instant nostalgia whenever I hear this song. I was obsessed with it whenever I was younger. A song about falling in love for the first time, which I didn't know that, but now I do, and it makes total sense whenever I read the lyrics. I just always loved how, like, airy it sounded. And so I like the cover by MisterWives because I think that what they did is, like, applied like this alt rock filter to this song in a way. Mr. Wives is like an alt rock band from New York City. They kind of remind me of Churches in a way. Like, I think, like, if Churches had covered this song, it would have been very similar to like what Mr. Wives produced here. So I think, yeah, it's like a really nice updated version of the classic, but this is absolutely like the same song, but with like a filter applied to it. There's nothing really divergent here about their cover. It's just kind of a straightforward one, but one that I enjoyed. And MisterWives is a band that I got introduced to like 3 years ago, and have really enjoyed listening to their work. So that's why I picked this one.
Yeah, Cranberry song, outstanding. So many movie trailers included
Yes.
that song. That's immediately what I think of when I hear it. It's just some voiceover about to jump in. Um, but you're right. It has kind of an ethereal, kind of airy quality to it. And I feel like Mr. Wives kind of just leaned into that a little bit more, like dropped the instruments.
Hmm.
The voice is at a little bit higher register. I almost felt like the Cranberries could have done that version, which is why I thought this was a
Right.
cool pairing, because it was like, yeah, it almost seemed like something they did in the studio, but ended up not making the final cut. Right. And so
Right.
I thought that was a really neat interpretation of it, is just like not wholly different, like you said, but just kind of a different take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, your next pick, you went with Across the Universe by none other than the Beatles, and what I think is an incredible cover by Fiona Apple.
Yeah. When I listen to Fiona Apple, and like, she reminds me of Billie Eilish, right? Like I wonder
Hmm.
if Billie Eilish fans somehow get connected in the algorithm to Fiona Apple, because there are some like qualities to them that kind of connect. I think Fiona Apple's voice is a little better. And that's not a knock on Billie Eilish. Like, I just think Fiona Apple's a better singer. But yeah, I just thought, one, I just made that connection for the first time between those two artists. But here we don't do a whole lot of Beatles on this show, even though I bet we could do a whole covers mix of just Beatles songs probably.
Yeah.
Across the Universe is such a cool song. It's so lyric heavy, and the cadence of it is just a little irregular. And so it kind of takes someone like Fiona Apple to cover this adequately, and sort of match that in some way. Like, I feel like she is an artist, and just her voice, I think, is perfect for a song like this. And yeah, I mean, she just kind of knocks it out of the park. I mean, if you're going to do a Beatles cover, I feel like you really have to come strong with it. And
Yes.
and she does a great job here.
Yeah, this song, I was reading about what Lennon, so this is apparently one of Lennon's favorites, and why he really particularly liked this one is that he said that you could read it as poetry, like you don't even need the melody. And I agree with him. Like, if you just read like the second verse, like, images of broken light which dance before me like a million eyes, they call me on and on across the universe. Thoughts meander like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe. Like, gorgeously written lyrics. And so then you have that really strong foundation there, and then you apply, Fiona Apple's voice to it, and she just like knocks it out of the park. Like, I think her version is like softer, it feels less produced, but just like a gorgeous take. I would pick her version over over the Beatles, because I just, yeah, I think it's like such a unique kind of taking that strong foundation, taking those words, and then just applying like a gorgeous voice to it.
Well, and
You
she's a
can't
better
lose.
singer than John Lennon, right? Like just
Right.
objectively,
Yeah.
I think even John Lennon would agree with
Right.
that. So,
Yeah, totally.
all right, track 6. We get back to back with these guys. We just featured them on a mix, and you talked about a whole treasure trove of covers out there. So we get here. You pick "Nothing Else Matters" by Metallica, and the covers by Phoebe Bridgers.
Yeah, what's so funny is that we both picked, songs off of this album, but we also did it in the exact same spot in our mixes, which I think is so funny. Like that pairing like was truly coincidental. So yeah, pretty wild. So yes, obviously we had to pick, songs off of this because I just talked about it. I absolutely love this version by Phoebe Bridgers. I think it's so subdued, it's so sad, it like sounds so small compared to like how James sing it. So this is like taking the exact same song, the exact same lyrics, and in my opinion doing something completely different with it, which is why it's like so interesting. Like his version is almost triumphant in a way, and hers it just feels like you're broken inside, which is a very Phoebe Bridgers thing to do. And it has like her voice also has like a little bit of like this lo-fi audio quality like filter on it, which I think adds a lot of power to what she's singing. So I just think it's amazing. Like this is truly one of those cases where you can take the exact same song and then just go, so wildly different, like take a sharp right turn and produce something like that. So really, really like these. I mean, they're so different. It's hard for me to like pick one. I think they both stand alone because of that.
Yeah, it was interesting because I kind of got the same like tone or sort of message from the lyrics from both of them. But obviously the Metallica one is very forceful, but hers is forceful in like a different way. And I don't know what it is about her voice, but you're right. Just such a vastly different take than a song I've heard countless times. Really cool, and almost had kind of an eerie quality to it, right? Which I thought was perfect. As we just had Halloween, so it's like this is the right time of the year for something like that.
Yeah, totally. I like that. That could be on a Halloween eerie mix. All right. So as we mentioned, your picks off of this album, you went with "Sad But True," obviously by Metallica, and then a cover by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, a band that we've talked about a couple of times before.
Yeah, I mean, and what a wild take on this song, right? Like "Sad But True" is such a like rock anthem, like it's just hardcore rock and roll. And then Jason Isbell and his band, I mean, they've got some steel guitar, maybe some banjo in there, and it's this peppy little song. I mean, they don't change one word, but it just becomes almost like ironic in a way, more so than like the original version from Metallica. And so I just thought that was incredible. How much like it's funny because you don't necessarily have a smile on your face listening to "Sad But True" by Metallica, but then you're listening to Jason Isbell's take and it's like, why am I smiling? I don't think I should be smiling right now.
You're right. I had such a weird reaction to this cover because love the Metallica version, and then I hit play on this one and I was like, oh my god, what is this? Like, what is happening? But then I let it play, and the more I let it play, the more I was like, I think I love this. Like, this is like, it's so interesting. It's like a blues version of Metallica, right? It is so bluesy and like, it's so twangy, but it like works really well. It was bizarre. So I ended up really loving it. But the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh my God, this is why this is so weird to listen to this, especially having just heard, like the way that we listen to these, right? Having just played Metallica's version, like shockingly different to listen to theirs.
But you're right. It does take a little bit of a bluesy feel to it. And I don't know. It's really pretty cool what they're able to do with that. I thought it was excellent.
I agree.
All right. Track 8, you have "Fix You," the original by Coldplay and the cover by Kacey Musgraves.
Yeah, I'm coming at you strong with some country. But you didn't see that coming.
I did not. In fact, my first note is, how did I miss this song? Because I love Kacey Musgraves and I love the song "Fix You" by Coldplay, but somehow the intersection never came my way.
She's on my very short list of country artists that I will listen to happily. And it's a very short list, so she should feel quite honored. um, and I mean, because she's just so freaking talented, right? Like, it doesn't even matter that, in my opinion, that she's singing country. Like, I get over it because I just think she has a gorgeous voice. And she does this song a lot of justice. I think, this song, if I ever really just like listen to this song, like close my eyes, listen to it, I'm not doing anything else, I feel like I could bring myself to tears listening to it. It's just like a very emotional song. And it's just beautifully done. Chris Martin also has like a very delicate voice, especially in this track. And so, yeah, I think it's like she does a great job with it too. Hers is beautiful. I love the guitar and the soft quality to it as well. And could listen to it all day. So I was happy to kind of surprise you with this one.
I was. This was a pleasant surprise. Obviously, love her voice, and like you said, this is a beautiful song. I think Chris Martin wrote this actually after Gwyneth Paltrow, who he was married to at the time, after her father passed away. And so, the lyric like "tears stream down your face when you lose something you can't replace," right? And so it's like. So it's a song about like losing someone, right? And trying to help that person going through that. So it's such a beautiful song. But, the thing that I love the most in Fix You is just that build up part with the guitar and the drums and all that.
Yeah.
And Kacey Musgraves just kind of skips over that part. And so that's why it's like, I'm going to go with the original as far as which one I favored here still. But of course, her voice is amazing.
Yeah, that's totally fair. All right, track 9, the one where we had to kind of swap out last minute. We'll talk about that. So this is Make You Feel My Love, the original actually by Bob Dylan, and then the cover by Adele.
Yeah, so originally when I put this on the mix, I had it as, well, let me just go back. I first heard this song from Garth Brooks. Okay, Garth Brooks recorded this song and put it out on an album. And I was like, in high school or college, right? And I heard it and I was like, oh, this is a great song. Well, then Billy Joel puts it on one of his greatest hits albums. And then I'm like, oh, maybe this is a Billy Joel song. And Garth Brooks covered it.
Right.
And then I remembered after I sent you my mix, because I really originally had Billy Joel on here. It was actually a Bob Dylan song. So Bob Dylan wrote and recorded this song. And then it was covered by Billy Joel, by Garth Brooks, and now by Adele. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful love song. And Adele's voice, just nothing but her and the piano. It's incredible. But also it's like, talk about some heavy hitters, like covering this song. Like, if you're some indie band, don't touch this song, because those four are, arguably the best in their fields at different times. I mean,
right. That's awesome. You just put a challenge out there to all the indie bands.
I do, yeah. If you're some indie band, give me a cover of "Make You Feel My Love" and see if I'm cool with it. Yeah,
I love that. They will make you feel their love of this song. It's very appropriate. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I gotta go with the Adele version here. And I think it's, as we kind of mentioned earlier, like Bob Dylan's voice. He was a great songwriter. I wouldn't call him an amazing singer, right? Like, I don't think of him as an amazing singer. And the lyrics are gorgeous. Like, as you said, it's just a beautiful song. So I think like having her voice sing these lyrics in particular, there's less of a mismatch, which is what I feel whenever I listen to him sing it. I feel like these two things don't belong together.
Right.
So I really like the Adele version, and kind of makes sense that like the Billy Joel versions and the Garth Brooks and all of those end up becoming really popular, because it's like, right, they're super talented singers, they have great voices, plus again really strong lyrics. It's like we talked about with the Beatles, so it makes sense that those kind of blow up. But then you're like, oh right, this actually was
this is actually a Bob Dylan song. Yeah, and Bob Dylan would probably agree that Adele's a better singer, right? Just like John Lennon would concede that to Fiona Apple. Sure. All right, track 10, we've got Under Pressure, of course the original by Queen and David Bowie, the cover by The Used and My Chemical Romance.
I know, like, what a great random cover. This is just one of those that I just kind of found by chance, by searching around, like just trying to find like, well-known covers and stuff. So this was really fun, because this is absolutely one of these where it's like a filter being applied to a song. Under Pressure obviously an amazing song by two of the greatest in their field, so Queen and David Bowie. And like this is basically like truly My Chemical Romance singing this song. I just think like it sounds just like them. Their style works really well with the song, and yeah, I liked it. So it's just kind of a fun one I wanted to throw on here.
I agree. I was a little surprised to see it on there. I didn't realize people had covered this song. I also wondered if the Used and My Chemical Romance were going to deny that it was actually a cover, the way Vanilla Ice did, and just say, no,
Right.
it's totally different. Okay. But you're right.
Yeah,
they
you can
do
hear
put
it.
that
It's
My
different.
Chemical Romance filter on it. They speed it up, which I thought was cool, right? Like they kind of
Mhm.
pick up the pace a little bit. And yeah, they don't try to match the vocals just because it's impossible to match the vocals. So,
Right.
good on them for just
Yeah.
being like, we're not even going to try to do that. Let's just do our own version of it, which I thought was perfect.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it would be hard to go toe to toe with Queen.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
David
come
Bowie.
on, get out of here.
Maybe, yeah, maybe don't do that with Freddie Mercury.
Right.
It's like those karaoke things. Like, don't
Yeah.
pick that.
Don't do
unless
that.
You got a great
Don't
voice.
do that.
Don't do that. All right. So your final pick here, you went with Jolene by Dolly Parton and the cover by the White Stripes.
Yeah, Dolly Parton's original is just legendary, right? Like, I mean, like all her songs, I don't know, but her vocals are great. And the lyrics here are outstanding. And it's just such a song of like desperation. And I think that's what I thought was so cool about what the White Stripes did and Jack White, where it's like he really kind of, there's almost this descent into madness, right? As he's singing this song, because that really is what this song is, right? Like it's just this desperate plea. Don't steal my man because I know you can, right? Like that's kind of the overriding message here. And so I think Jack White does a good job both with musically and then just with his voice of kind of conveying that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's funny you mentioned the descent in the madness because I like listened to the White Stripes version and I thought of the Doors. It's almost like, I don't know, for some reason that was the association. Then whenever I think of the Doors, I think of the song The End, and then I think of Apocalypse Now. And so that was that whole connection there for you. That's how my brain works. So I really enjoyed their take on it. And this one is hard for me to pick because they are so different to one another. And it's definitely in that category of like you take the same song and you can kind of do it wildly different, but both really, really good. I enjoyed both. Absolutely.
All right, your final pick, final track of the mix. It is The King of Carrot Flowers, Part 1, the original by Neutral Milk Hotel, and the cover, of course, by Death Cab for Cutie.
Of course, Ben Gibbard coming back again. This is one that I did not know existed, but it makes all the sense in the world that it exists because if you've got a band like Neutral Milk Hotel, like I feel like of course Death Cab for Cutie could cover them because they're both in like that alt, pop rock mix space or whatever. So, and it's like a sad, dark song told through like a kind of a folksy, odd tune with really peculiar instrumentation. So again, it's like perfect Sammer bait number one and perfect Death Cab for Cutie opportunity to cover. So I think they both did like a great job of the song. I do like the Death Cab version a little bit more, but probably because I love that band. They're like a top 5 band for me easily. And yeah, it's an odd song. It's an interesting one. So it was fun for me to kind of pick something way out of left field, that you might not have. I assume you haven't heard the original, much less the cover here.
Look, if I had a nickel for every cover of The King of Carrot Flowers Part 1 that I've heard, I'd be a wealthy man, Sammer. No, I was not familiar with the song. The original reminded me of something that like They Might Be Giants might do, right? Where
interesting.
Yeah, where it's not necessarily, I don't know. I like the Death Cab for Cutie cover because it was a little more melodic, right? Like they kind of sang it a little bit more than what the original was. But yeah, I thought it was a really cool song and definitely something that if it's not already on a Wes Anderson soundtrack, should be at some point.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, there you have it. It is volume 3 of our covers mix. You get a super size mix this week with 24 songs on it. Go ahead and check us out on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix. Share the show, rate us, give us a nice little 5-star review there. Sammer and I will get to work on our next mixes. So for Sammer, this is Matt, and we'll see you next time. Super Awesome Mix is brought to you by DLM. Make shopping easy with DLM, the one-stop shop for all your casual clothing needs. Shop dlmsupplyco.com and enter the promo code AWESOME at checkout to save 15% off your first purchase. That's dlmsupplyco.com.